I walked into the restaurant, soaking wet from the rain, gift in hand, heart pounding, only to realize they had already started dessert without me. No saved seat, no greeting, not even a glance up. And then my mother handed me the $1,200 dinner bill with a smile. At first, I thought it was a joke. Then I saw the way they all looked at me. Like this was normal, like I was the help. Hi, I'm Juliet Monroe. I'm 34 years old, a freelance UX designer living in Austin, Texas. I'm not rich, but I manage just fine. I wear thrifted cashmere and ride a beat-up Vespa that always needs gas. And for the past 3 years, I've been my family's unofficial emergency fund. A new laptop for my niece? Sure. A short-term loan for my dad's car? Of course. A kitchen remodel I wasn't even consulted on? Why not? Every time I opened my wallet, I told myself they'll see me one day. Not as the black sheep, not as the mistake who chose creativity over corporate, but as someone who mattered. So when my parents' 35th anniversary came around, I saw it as my shot at redemption. I bought them matching smartwatches, custom engraved with their wedding date. I wrapped them in silver foil, wrote a handwritten note, even prepared a short toast. I picked out a navy silk wrap dress that made me feel elegant, confident, hopeful. I left early, but Austin traffic had other plans. A 3-car collision on I-35 locked the highway down. I texted. I called. I even dropped a pin in the family group chat. No one replied. By the time I arrived at The Oasis, one of the city's most expensive restaurants, the hostess smiled softly. The Monroe party? Right this way. They're just finishing up dessert. Dessert. Not appetizers. Not entrees. Dessert. I stepped into the private dining room like someone crashing a party she'd been invited to, but wasn't yonned at. The room glowed with candlelight and half-filled wine glasses. Laughter floated above the soft clinking of silverware. My sister Melody was mid-laugh, leaning into her husband like she lived in a toothpaste commercial. My father was swirling wine like a sommelier. My mom, ever the perfectionist, was adjusting the edge of a linen napkin. 8 seats around the table. Only 7 were occupied. The 8th was just there. No plate, no glass, no napkin, no intention. No one noticed me. Not until my 11-year-old niece muttered without even looking up, "Oh, Aunt Jules is here." My mother turned her head, offering me a smile so tight it felt stapled on. "Well," she said, "look who finally decided to show up." I opened my mouth to explain about the accident, the rain, the standstill on the highway, but my sister waved it off like I was a background noise. "We started without you," she said, sipping her wine. "Dad's rule, no phones during dinner, you know that." Never mind, she once live tweeted my cousin's baby shower. I sat down slowly. No one offered to order for me. No one asked if I was okay. But then came the moment I'll never forget. My mother pulled a piece of paper from her purse, unfolded it with practiced elegance, and slid it across the white tablecloth toward me. "Here," she said lightly. "We thought you might want to take care of the bill, since you missed most of the dinner. If you've ever walked into a room expecting love and walked out with a receipt instead, you're not alone. Please consider subscribing to this channel. It gives me the motivation to keep sharing stories like this and send more meaningful ones your way. Because this night was only the beginning." The silence after my mother slid the bill across the table still rang in my ears as I reached into my tote bag. Not for my wallet, not yet, but for the silver-wrapped box I'd spent hours preparing. I held it gently, like something fragile, because in a way, it was. Not just a gift, but a peace offering, a symbol, a desperate hope that I could still mean something more to them than money. "Happy anniversary," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I offered the box with both hands, like a waiter in a fine restaurant. Even now I was trying to serve. My mother took it with a prim smile and placed it next to her wine glass. Didn't open it, didn't look curious. It sat untouched like a centerpiece no one wanted to disturb. After an awkward pause, my Aunt Denise finally spoke up. "Shouldn't we open Juliet's gift?" she asked, trying to sound cheerful. She was always the one who noticed things others pretended not to notice. "Oh, yes, of course," my mother said, as if she'd nearly forgotten. She unwrapped the box with the precision of someone peeling a label off a wine bottle, careful not to disturb the flow of the evening too much. Inside were 2 sleek smartwatches, latest model, graphite gray, engraved on the back with Monroe 35. Already set up with their favorite fitness tracking apps because they'd both mentioned wanting to get in shape this year. I'd even programmed reminders for their shared evening walks. My father picked one up, turning it over in his palm. "These are very nice," he said with the tone you use when someone brings a decent bottle of wine to a party. Not excitement, just polite approval. "That's thoughtful," my mother added, but she closed the box and placed it back down beside her. She didn't try it on. Neither of them asked about the engraving. The moment passed so quickly, I almost wondered if I'd imagined it. A flicker of recognition, then back to wine and small talk. From the far end of the table, my niece Emma piped up. "Wait till you see what Mom and Dad got them," she chirped, bouncing slightly in her seat. Even at 11, Emma had mastered the art of redirecting attention, just like her mother, Melody, my older sister, smiled like a cat who knew exactly when the spotlight was coming. She reached into her tote and pulled out a slim white envelope, the kind you'd use for a will or a check too large to be folded. My mother opened it slowly, brows lifting with each page she read. Inside were printed documents, a fully paid-for, first-class cruise to the Greek Isles, 7 days, private balcony suite, spa vouchers, excursions included. "We know how much you've always wanted to go to Santorini," Melody said softly, "and you deserve to be pampered." The table erupted. My father clapped Melody's husband on the back. My mother teared up. Everyone leaned in to look at the itinerary, gasping at the pictures of cliffside villas and blue-domed churches. No one looked at my box again. It just sat there, small, heavy, forgotten. 15 minutes passed. The conversations circled around the cruise, the weather, the wine, the Greek yogurt. I sat quietly, tasting nothing as I picked at a mousse someone had finally ordered for me. It tasted like disappointment, soft and cold and a little bitter. That's when I heard my brother-in-law murmur something to my father. Not whispering, just assuming I wouldn't care or couldn't hear. "That's the difference between having a real job and doing freelance work," he said. "When you make real money, you give real gifts." My father didn't disagree. My mother just nodded, still smiling, as she showed my aunt a photo of the resort. No one corrected him. No one defended me. And I realized I wasn't a daughter at that table. I was a sponsor. And they were done thanking me. The laughter over the Santorini trip had barely died down when my mother folded the cruise itinerary neatly like it was sacred scripture and slipped it into her purse like something she'd need to reread later to feel good again. I sat there, back straight, hands in my lap, pretending to enjoy the chocolate mousse. It had long since melted into something cold and shapeless, much like the version of me they thought they knew. The conversation drifted from cruises to college plans, from Emma's gifted program to Charlie's soccer tournament. I nodded when expected, smiled when polite, but I was floating above it all, watching myself disappear in real time. And just as I reached for my water glass, trying to soothe the ache building in my throat, my mother reached for her purse again. Only this time, it wasn't for a napkin or her phone. She pulled out a folded piece of paper and flattened it carefully on the tablecloth. The clink of silverware paused. My father leaned in slightly, and I recognized that look, the business face, polite, detached, unapologetic. "It's the bill," my mother said, her voice gentle, almost sweet. She slid the paper across the table, toward me.
"We thought you might want to take care of it." I blinked. Once, then twice. I hadn't eaten the appetizers. I hadn't touched the wine. I hadn't even gotten there in time for the toast. "I'm sorry," I said, more to the room than to anyone in particular. My voice barely registered over the sound of the wine being poured again. "You missed most of the dinner," she explained, still smiling, "but this would be a lovely way for you to contribute." I looked down at the bill. $1,268 for a dinner I hadn't been part of. "Juliet," my father chimed in, as if he were soothing a fussy child. "We did reserve the private room, and the restaurant charges per guest." He shrugged. "Your chair was still there. And it's not like you have other expenses," my mother added lightly. "No kids, no mortgage. It just makes sense." That's when Melody laughed. Not softly, not nervously, but like someone who had finally heard a joke they'd been waiting to say out loud. "Oh, come on, Jules," she said. "Don't act surprised. You've always been the family ATM. Why stop now?" The table exploded with laughter. Forks clinked, glasses raised. Even my niece giggled, not knowing what she was laughing at. And me? I sat still. The only sound in my head was the blood rushing past my ears. The word, ATM, echoed. Not daughter, not sister, not Juliet. ATM. My brother-in-law lifted his wine glass in mock celebration. "To Juliet's good fortune," he said, "which we've all been lucky enough to enjoy." They all toasted, and I felt myself shrinking right there in that expensive chair under those fancy pendant lights, surrounded by people who knew me only by what I could give. I looked down at the bill, but now it wasn't just a receipt. It was a mirror. 3 years of loans I'd never see again. Camps, laptops, wine subscriptions, a new air conditioner for their lake house. The unspoken agreement. Juliet pays, and we pretend it's love. I took a deep breath, folded the bill in half, then in half again. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. Something else was waking up. Something tired of being taken for granted. Something dangerously close to done. And they still thought I'd pull out my wallet, because I always had. But this time, they'd miscalculated. Badly. There was a long, expectant silence after the laughter died down. I could feel every eye at that table quietly urging me to do what I always did. Smile, swallow it, and pay. But something shifted. It wasn't rage exactly. It was older than that. Deeper. Quieter. It was the sharp, clean ache of clarity, of realizing you've been played over and over by people who called it family. And suddenly, you don't want to play anymore. I held the folded bill in both hands, running my thumbs along the edge. Then, without saying a word, I tore it in half. Gasps rippled across the table like dropped silverware. I didn't stop. Half became quarters. Quarters became scraps. I kept tearing, slowly, methodically, until the pieces fluttered to the tablecloth like angry snow. My mother froze mid-sip. My father's face turned the color of uncorked Merlot. Melody leaned back in her chair, smirking like she thought I was bluffing. "Juliet," my father said tightly, "what exactly do you think you're doing?" I looked him straight in the eye, paying with the only thing I have left, my self-respect. "You've lost your mind," my mother snapped, voice brittle. "No," I said quietly. "I've finally found it." I pushed back my chair and stood up, smoothing down the skirt of my dress. The room was too bright suddenly, too loud even in its silence. I felt dizzy, but not from fear. For the first time in years, I felt awake. "For 3 years," I began,
I've covered your emergencies, your upgrades, your luxuries. I scanned the table, faces I had once ached to please. Every check came with hope that maybe this time you'd say thank you, that maybe this time you'd see me. No one spoke. I turned to my mother. I bought you that bracelet you're wearing right now, for your birthday, $14,000, and you told your friends it was from Dad. She blinked, caught. Her hand went to her wrist, then dropped. I looked at Melody. I paid for Emma's orthodontist when your insurance wouldn't cover it. Did you ever tell her that? My sister shrugged. She's 11. She doesn't care where the money came from. She will, I said. One day. My father stood now, towering over the table. This is not how we resolve things in this family. No, I said, because in this family, things don't get resolved. They get buried in guilt and handed back wrapped in sarcasm. I pulled my wallet from my purse, took out 3 crisp $100 bills, and placed them gently on the table beside the shredded check. That covers my share of the meal, of the evening, of the performance. I turned toward the door, heart pounding. Behind me, chairs scraped. A voice or two called my name, but I didn't stop. I reached the threshold of the room, paused, and looked back one last time. The chandelier above them shimmered like nothing had happened, like everything hadn't. And I said, calmly, clearly, finally, I think we're done here. Then I walked out, one step at a time, and with every step, the weight on my chest got lighter. By the time I reached the parking lot, I wasn't carrying anything anymore, except my own name. I don't remember the drive home that night. Just rain, headlights, and the hollow sound of my phone vibrating in the passenger seat. Text after text. Missed calls. My mother, Melody, even my father. I didn't answer any of them. Not that night, not for a long while after. For the first time in years, I went quiet. No more Friday dinners, no more family group chat, no more surprise Venmo requests labeled, just a little help. I deleted our thread, muted their numbers, put my life on airplane mode.
And in that silence, I found something I didn't expect. Relief. Like taking off shoes 2 sizes too small. I filled my time with work, real, meaningful projects, clients who respected me, collaborators who saw me. I joined a local women's design collective, volunteered at a creative writing workshop. There were moments, sure, late at night when guilt snuck in like a draft. What kind of goddess walks away? But those questions grew quieter the longer I stayed gone. Until one morning, 3 months after the dinner, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. No emoji, no maybe dad, just a strange, out-of-state area code. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me said, pick up. "This is Juliet," I answered. "Ms. Monroe, this is Thomas Brennan, Senior Account Specialist with Sierra West Bank. We've detected some unusual activity on your identity profile. Do you have a moment to verify a few details?" My heart stopped. 1,000 possibilities flashed across my mind. Had I been hacked? "Someone recently attempted to open a line of credit in your name," he said calmly. "A joint application. You were listed as the co-signer." He paused. "The primary applicant was a Mr. Richard Monroe." I didn't say anything. Not right away. Because I couldn't breathe. My father. He hadn't just used me emotionally. He was trying to use me legally. Mr. Brennan continued. "The submitted documents included a copy of your Social Security card and driver's license. Would he have had access to those?" I blinked, remembering. The last time I'd been at my parents' house, months ago, I'd left my document folder in the study while I helped my mom unload groceries. Just 20 minutes. He'd made copies of everything. No, I said firmly. I never gave him permission. Mr. Brennan's tone shifted, gentle now. I'm sorry to say, Miss Monroe, this qualifies as identity theft. Would you like to file a formal report? I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the framed sketch above my desk, one I'd drawn in college before all this. A girl standing in the middle of a storm, arms open, not afraid. My stomach churned. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was criminal. How many times has he tried this? I asked suddenly. A pause. I can't disclose specific numbers, Brennan said carefully. But I can tell you there have been multiple inquiries in your name, all within the last 6 weeks. 6 weeks? Since I walked out of that restaurant? Since I stopped answering? This wasn't desperation. This was persistence. Calculated. Cold. And as I sat on my couch, hands shaking around my coffee mug, I realized something even darker than before. They hadn't just lost access to my wallet. They'd lost control, and they were trying to take it back any way they could. I didn't call the police that day. I called my therapist. I needed someone to say I wasn't crazy for feeling shattered.
Dr. Leanne Matthews answered on the third ring, her voice calm and warm like always. When I told her what my father had done, she didn't gasp. She didn't ask why I hadn't seen it coming. Instead, she said, "This isn't about finances anymore. This is about power." And that sentence sat with me like a stone in the chest, because I knew she was right. After our call, I didn't cry. I didn't scream or pace or drink wine straight from the bottle. I sat down and wrote a letter. Not a handwritten one, not poetic or wistful, just an email. Clean, cold, clear. I sent it to my mother, my father, Melody, and my Aunt Denise. The subject line was, "This ends now. No more guessing." In it, I laid out everything: the attempted identity theft, the unauthorized documents, the dates, the evidence, the silence that followed. I didn't ask questions. I didn't invite responses. I stated the facts. I told them I was placing a full credit freeze, that I had changed every password, that if it happened again, the next conversation would be with the detective. And then I wrote the line I had been too afraid to say for most of my life. From this point forward, I am not your safety net. I am not your scapegoat. I am not your bank. I hit send, then I turned off my laptop, turned off my phone, and spent the rest of the day on the balcony with a blanket and the wind. The replies came fast. Melody's came first. A single paragraph full of blame. "So now you're the victim? You're tearing this family apart over a misunderstanding?" My Aunt Denise responded with heartbreak and hesitation. "I'm shocked, Juliet. If this is true, I'm so sorry. But maybe there's a way to fix this without cutting ties." And my mother, 3 days later, called. I let it ring. Then I let it ring again. On the third try, I answered, out of some old instinct, or maybe just curiosity. "Juliet," she said softly, "can we meet? Just the two of us. Please?" I paused. She sounded different, smaller, and against my better judgment,
I said yes. We met at a small cafe near my apartment. Neutral ground, public space, easy exit. I arrived early, sat by the window, ordered tea I didn't touch. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. Her blouse was wrinkled, her hair undone. She looked like a woman who hadn't slept. She sat down across from me and said nothing for a full minute. Then she folded a napkin in half over and over again until it was nearly shredded. "I didn't know," she finally whispered. "I swear to you, Juliet, I didn't know what your father was doing." I said nothing. "I'm not here to defend it," she added. "I'm here to apologize. For that night, for every night before it, for turning love into a transaction." And that was the first moment I realized my mother hadn't come to fix anything. She had come to confess. She stirred her coffee more than she drank it. It was already lukewarm, but her spoon kept circling as if the motion might help her find the words she'd spent decades avoiding. Across the small table, I waited, hands folded, back straight. Not hostile, just guarded. I'd spent too long letting silence stretch so others could feel comfortable. "I need to tell you something," my mother finally said, her voice dry and deliberate. And somehow, I knew, this wasn't going to be about me. Not really. She looked up at me, eyes ringed with something deeper than fatigue. "I think your father has had a gambling problem for years," she said. Not whispered, not hidden, just spoken. I didn't blink. She took that as permission to go on. "I found out the first time when Emma was in diapers. He said it was stress, said it was under control. I believed him." Her hands trembled slightly as she folded the napkin in her lap. "But the debt never stayed gone. He'd stop, then start again. Credit cards, loans, borrowing from friends, sometimes even from Melody." I tilted my head at that. "Yes," she said quickly. She knew. Not all of it, but enough. And instead of facing it, we covered it, hid it, wrapped it in gifts and vacations. And when you won that money, Juliet, it was like salvation to him." I swallowed hard. "Did you know he copied my documents?" I asked, voice level. "No," she said, and I believed her. But I knew he was desperate, and I let myself think that desperation was still better than shame. We sat in quiet for a while. The cafe hummed around us, soft jazz and clinking china, and distant laughter from a toddler in the corner. And I realized this was the first time I had ever seen my mother without her armor. "I'm not asking you to forgive him," she said, finally meeting my eyes. "I'm not even asking you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know the truth." She reached into her purse, pulled out a folded slip of paper. No, not a check, a flyer for a support group. Spouses of addicts. She placed it on the table between us like a fragile offering. "I'm going," she said. "I've already started, and I've told your father he needs help too. But he's not ready." I nodded slowly. "And Melody?" "She doesn't want to hear it," she sighed. "She's still clinging to the picture we painted. Perfect family, perfect careers, perfect control." Then, quieter, "She's still protecting him." I looked at the woman across from me, not the mother who'd coldly handed me a bill or minimized my gifts, but someone who had been quietly unraveling in a house made of appearances. And maybe,
just maybe, she was tired of it too. "I'm willing to have a relationship," I said carefully, "but it will look different. There will be boundaries. No money, no blurred lines, and time. I need time to see if this is real." She nodded. No arguments, no manipulation, just a soft, "I understand." I stood to leave, and she did too. No hug, no scene, just two women learning how to let go of everything that wasn't real. Outside, the sun had broken through the clouds. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty for walking away. I felt ready. 2 months after that cafe meeting, I got a small envelope in the mail. No return address, no handwriting I recognized, just my name, typed neatly in the center like it belonged there. Inside was a single receipt. No letter, no explanation, just a transaction printout from Sierra West Bank. Balance, 0. Account, closed. Name on file, Juliet Monroe, removed. I stared at it for a long time, not because it hurt, but because it didn't. That one little slip of thermal paper held more closure than all the words my father had never said. No apology, no confession, no tearful reunion, just silence. And this. Maybe it was his way of waving a white flag, or maybe it was just paperwork. Either way, it was the first thing from him that came without strings. I folded the receipt, slid it into the back of a journal I hadn't written in since my 20s, and walked out onto my balcony with a glass of iced tea. The sun was soft, the breeze steady. The world, my world, was quiet. In that stillness, I thought about everything I used to believe, that family means unconditional support, that love is proven through sacrifice, that being the reliable one made me good. But here's what I know now. Being needed is not the same as being loved. Being generous is not the same as being safe. And peace, true peace, isn't what you earn by keeping everyone else comfortable. It's what you build when you finally stop apologizing for your boundaries. I thought walking away would feel like failure, like I was giving up on something sacred. But all I was really giving up was the illusion. An illusion that told me I had to buy my place at the table, that I had to earn affection through gifts, silence, or pretending I wasn't hurt. And the truth? You don't have to pay to be loved. You don't owe anyone your self-worth, no matter what they've told you. Love that comes with invoices isn't love, it's leverage. Since then, my life hasn't become a fairy tale. My family is still complicated. Some bridges are still burned, and I've learned to be okay with the smoke. But I've started hosting my own dinners now, small, real ones, with people who bring laughter, honesty, and their own wine. And when they leave, no one hands anyone a bill because the love already came and went right there at the table, free of charge. If you're listening to this and you've ever been the giver, the one who always steps in, always smooths things over, I want you to hear me. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to stop pouring from a cup that's never been refilled. Sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is stop showing up, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Because love isn't supposed to hurt, and family isn't supposed to bleed you dry. And if my story made you feel seen, if you've ever carried the weight of being the responsible one until your shoulders went numb, then I hope you'll stick around. Subscribe to this channel if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard. It helps me create more videos from the heart and send more truth your way. Because this life, it's too short to keep footing bills for love that doesn't show up.
And you, my friend, you are not an ATM. You are a human being, and you deserve peace.